What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Sting, and we're jumping back to The Dream of the Blue Turtles, 1985. Thank you again to Stefan, as well as to Michaela, who has provided the Fields of Gold Greatest Hits compilation, and we'll just keep going back and forth between the two. But yes, the next tune on The Dream of the Blue Turtles is Children's Crusade, which is an interesting title. I can't imagine this is an overt reference to one of the Crusades as they are historically known. Maybe it is, and fair to say, there were young people involved in those, and they're very different. Now, I'm not a Crusade specialist, meaning when you're a historian, when you get your undergraduate and graduate degrees in history, you do have to study history from all different time periods and different regions, so I've studied a little bit of Crusade history, but not all that much. So if this is a very specific reference, I cannot recall it at face value. Now, a crusade can mean more generally a very concerted effort, one that borders on religious fanaticism, and thus it could be more conceptual or figurative in meaning, although even then I don't quite know what to do with it based on the phrase alone, so I'll try to follow along. Let's hear it. This is Sting. The tune is Children's Crusade, and it's from his 1985 album, The Dream of the Blue Turtles.
Never seen the virgin.
this tune and the previous one on the album, Russians, I feel like Sting is very deep in his reflective, political, and philosophical songwriting bag here. I mean, as far as I can tell, this does relate to young folks going off to war, but not the Crusades in the Middle Ages. But it seems like the primary locus here, temporally, is the Great War, or what we now call World War I, or the First World War, and referencing the red poppies, which I believe is sort of the enduring memorial for all those many, many thousands of young lives that were lost face down in the mud in the fields of France and Belgium. And yeah, number one, it seems to talk about the way in which a lot of these young kids didn't really have a choice, and even those who may have volunteered, they're fighting for things that they've never seen or that they won't reap the benefits from. And the people who are making these choices to send these young people out onto the fields like cannon fodder, they're safe behind enemy line, or they're safe not behind enemy lines, but safe behind their own lines, like drinking red wine and making decisions with an entire generation of children and the sons of families who would never come back. I do think there's a reference near the end to like 1984, which again, the Cold War, the idea of nuclear annihilation and the conscription, or at least the recruitment of another young generation ready to be sacrificed for the vicissitudes and power struggles and avarice of war. I feel like there is maybe a connection to the modern time as Sting is writing this tune, but it does seem like the main focus here is World War I and the 19-teens. And it actually does make me think of, I think it's Motorhead 1916, where he talks about, it's from the point of view of a 16-year-old who goes off to war and, sort of swept up in the national sentiment and so on, but doesn't return and ends up getting killed. So it feels like this is doing something similar and talking about how, again, these young lives betrayed by those in power and by those seeking geopolitical influence or, imperial control, and the great human cost that these motivations had. And again, an entire generation betrayed and maybe not wasted, but certainly exploited and forgotten or left on the fields of these, trenches and battlefields. So yeah, a heavy tune, sonically, sort of smooth and mellow kind of track. I think that was a saxophone. At first I wasn't sure. I was like, is that a keyboard line? Is that a clarinet? I think it was a sax. And then it starts almost like improvisational jazz. It's flourishing and flaring up in ways that feel a bit not only improvisational, but like maybe not dissonant. Maybe dissonant is too strong, but a bit like intense, like on the edge, which seems to fit theoretically or conceptually with what the song's doing thematically. So yes, definitely a very compelling composition. And Sting's voice, he's not standing out here. It's, the saxophone grabs more of our attention, but I think the emotion of the tune definitely comes across in his vocals. So a very powerful tune, a significant one to follow Russians with. So do let me know what you think. Once again, shout out to Stefan and to Michaela for the Fields of Gold compilation, which I think we'll jump back to next time. Shout out to Luca for sleeping through this. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.